Hi, everyone. Nice meeting you. M- my name is Barak. I'm leading the product organization in AppsFlyer. Like everyone on the former session, I'm also 11 years on mobile ad tech, first years as an advertiser, in the last years on the measurement side. Maybe one sentence about our product organization in AppsFlyer. We're over 500 people on the product and the R&D side, developing all of AppsFlyer products. Of course, measurement and attribution, but also beyond that, deep linking, incrementality, creative, predictive analytics, media mix modeling, you name it. And I'm very happy and delighted to host you here today. Amit Varia, Director of Product Management in Google. Maybe a few words about yourself.
Yeah, no, first off, thank you for having me and the team here. Delighted to get to see all these bright faces. Haven't been down to San Francisco in a while, so.
We talked about it before.
Yeah, no, it's good to be able to come back down here. Yeah, just a little bit about myself. So, like Barak mentioned, my name is Amit. So I head up the product team for the relevance and targeting side of the Privacy Sandbox. So that covers things like topics, protected audience, also looking across both the Chrome and Android platform. I think I got you guys beat. I think I got 12 years in ad tech, just by one. But no, been working in ad tech at Google for the last 12 years. Kind of started off in the world of search ads and everything. Then about two and a half years ago, made the switch over into Privacy Sandbox. So bringing over some of the insights and the knowledge I have there, but learning a lot about kind of the mobile ad space and the mobile ad tech space over the last couple of years, and putting that into the solutions we've been baking. So super excited that we get a chance to talk about what's going on.
Yeah, so maybe before really starting, what is your impression from the event up until now? What is the one thing maybe that you've learned?
I already got to the one thing I already learned. Well, one, I think it's amazing to see the kind of this level of engagement from the community and from the ad tech space. People are obviously aware of what's going on and leaning in. And I think that's kind of the key message that Roy was also bringing up. And I think that's maybe my big takeaway is that people are leaning in, and it's super exciting to see that from this crowd.
Yeah, I think the one thing I learned is that Fledge is the name of a bird.
Is it a bird or it's bird themed? I think is that bird themed? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There is a fun story behind where all the bird names come from, but I think we'll reserve that one for happy hour. So.
We need people to be engaged on the other parts. At least for me, I'm super excited to see here all these faces, and I think it's super important that we have here people from the advertising side, from the publisher side, from networks, from agencies, because my take, also learning from previous solutions, and Roy touched it. Privacy Sandbox is completely different from all the other things that we've seen before, but one thing is similar in that manner to SK Ad Network and other solutions. Eventually, it's a framework. And you guys built a framework, and then it's up to us as an industry about what we will do with this framework. So we have here the leading people from all the different parties, eventually to really lean towards it and make it work and prove that privacy and powerful measurement can really coexist together. So this is from my end, and I really want to take it to the first question now. And Roy also talked about all the different solutions that we see in the market, and I learned that I must refer to that slide. So, okay.
Yeah, we got some iconic slides from today.
I learned fast, but eventually Google is a gold standard of advertising. So, given that, what were the aspects that were important to you guys in Google when you really developed Privacy Sandbox?
Yeah, I think. There's a couple things I'd love to hit on for today. I also encourage you, so Victor Wong that's leading up the product team overall, published a letter on privacysandbox.com recently, kind of alluding to this as well, kind of laying out how we think about our pillars. There are a couple that really kind of stand out, right? And so the first is about this idea that privacy is universal, We want this to be accessible to all consumers of all types. We want this to be available to everybody. And so trying to make sure that every platform has support for this is kind of how we think about this. I think there's another big piece around this, which really focuses on viability, right? So as we're bringing about privacy, we know that we still need to have viable alternatives. So what that comes back to is making sure that there are ways, there are well-lit paths for ad tech, advertisers, publishers to be able to continue to monetize and reach their users within a private framework, as you were putting it, right? And so making sure we have those pieces so that you see that come about in a lot of the APIs we were just talking about today, but also some of the other technologies that you can look across on the Chrome side and more to come kind of over time. So those are like two major pieces there. But the other two ones that I think that really stand out is technologies. Right? So it's easy, not easy, but it's one path available to lean too much on just policy. What we want to do though is we want to invest the best of Google engineering. Right? I was talking about with you before on this, just the amazing might that Google engineering has in putting the best in research and efforts there towards technologies and building privacy-preserving, privacy-enhancing technologies. So baking that into our designs. So that way, not only do we have policies, but we actually have technologies that provide the right guardrails and technical guarantees on user privacy and enabling the use cases and viable paths to monetize. And then last but not least, we've already talked about this with the panel and with others. We're all here. We want to do this in the open. It's important for us to make sure we talk about where we're going. A couple years ago, about 2 years ago, we published explainers on the Privacy Sandbox for Android, outlining how we were thinking about our solutions, and we gathered a ton of feedback. We heard from ad tech, advertisers, publishers, everybody talking to us about what worked, what didn't. Roy was pointing to this as well. Sorry, Roy, I'm just going to allude to a lot of what you said. I think there was a lot of great discussions today already. But it was going to this idea that that feedback was incorporated into the design. Lots of bug fixes, lots of product behavior improvements, lots of capabilities that were able to come about. And so kind of hitting on this idea that by doing this in open in partnership with the ecosystem, we're building this together in a way that ensures it covers the right use cases. We understand what's important, and we're putting our resources behind the things that matter most. And so those are kind of the main areas that we've looked at for the last couple of years with this effort, even more before when we started on the Chrome side of things, to really shape the direction and the methods that we use to put our solutions out there and work with the community.
Yeah, we will talk about Chrome later on as well.
Yeah.
Usually when I run these panels, I try not to think ahead, also to bring my point of view in a fresh and unbiased way. So I thought as well, what from our side in AppsFlyer we see in Google's and Privacy Sandbox as we work with you in the last year around it. So I'll just mention from our point of view, what are the three main things we've identified in the solution. The first thing is the holistic approach. So it's not only about measurement, it's also optimization and activation and monetization and targeting and retargeting as a part of the solution. And the other two, actually, that's why I've done this disclaimer, because you've mentioned them as well, how it's leaning towards technology. So unlike other solutions, it's not coming with a simplified approach of if it's leaving the device, it's open to everyone. When we look at solutions such as data clean rooms or trusted environment, trusted executable environment, TEEs, which is part of the Privacy Sandbox, then actually parameters can leave the device but still in a privacy-preserving way. And the third thing, certainly seen, and I think today is a proof to that, is working with the ecosystem. Already in the last year, I can relate to at least 3 or 4 major changes that Google has done to Privacy Sandbox based on feedback, whether it's from MMPs or from other parties like you guys here. So hopefully we will still, till the enforcement, identify 2 or 3 more things that needs to be fixed in order to push for adoption. And this is actually relates to the my next question, which is how you see generally the wider ecosystem and the people here in the room are relating to these changes. what do you anticipate to see in terms of adoptions from networkers, from MMPs, from publishers? I looked at the audience during Roy's presentation, and I saw how everyone took pictures of what is attribution API and what is protected audiences. I mean, part of doing it in such a technological savvy way, like you've said Google are doing, makes it maybe not that simple for everyone, and that's what I've seen. So what is the key here really for adoption in that manner?
Yeah, I mean, the technologies are not simple, and that's okay, right? I think this is why we have an AdTech community here. And so I want to actually lean into the idea that these technologies that we're building, the T's, trusted execution environments, just stick with T's. It's so much easier.
Give it a name.
I know.
What about the bird?
We'll give it a bird name. That'll be our next one here. But with the investment in T's and all of this, like it does kind of bring about this idea that yes, these are new things. The great thing is AdTech is great at understanding tech, turning tech into opportunities for advertisers and publishers. And so this is a huge opportunity as we see it. Right, and not just from a take the technologies and the privacy preserving technologies and translate them into strategies and ways of executing against strategies, but as well as enabling things that may not have been possible or may not have been possible to do really well previously. So with some of these technologies, I'll go through a few examples here, but with some of these technologies, not only do we provide ways to better provide privacy guardrails that protect consumer users' privacy, but sometimes we actually end up finding ourselves in situations where they provide better security boundaries. And so, and they also enable use cases that previously just were very hard to do. A good example of this that Jolyn was referring to was, and Roy as well, was app-to-web measurement.
Yeah.
By bringing that about, I actually want to encourage folks, like, think of this not just as we have to move to this new world. This is an opportunity, and it's kind of take the time to think through what are some strategies today that are difficult to execute against, or rely kind of more on less deterministic capabilities, something like app-to-web, that could then start to light things up for your own businesses. Good example is streaming services today that you're streaming podcasts, streaming video services out there, wanting to be able to better measure how, as users interact with brand advertising, where do they end up? How do they convert? With the attribution API and the support for app-to-web, those types of use cases can now be done using data that's stored on device, so it better protects consumer privacy, but ensures that deterministic linking between the click and the conversion. So it's something that really kind of lights up a brand new area and space for advertisers and publishers to start exploring. One more, really kind of as we've been kind of unpacking this more and more of the ecosystem, has been around that idea of retail media. That's out there with their apps, wanting to be able to make sure that they can provide effective, meaningful measurement reporting back to their own brands that are buying on their networks, being able to do that in ways that protects their IP. Of course, in retail media, apps, first-party apps, always want to be careful of what data is being shared openly with others out there. And so with some of the capabilities between the protected audience API, the attribution API, a lot of these things now can kind of be done in ways that not only protect user privacy, but going back to this, also protects intellectual property. And so this is really where the opportunity comes. And for the folks here who are leaning in sooner than later, you have the time to be able to explore this more with AppsFlyer, with others out there, to be able to really figure out what are ways to light that up in ways that just haven't been possible today.
Yeah, I think that the key here for adoption, and the audience here is split to two, not only because
I know, do we?
but it's split to two between ones on the brand and advertiser side and one tech partners for these advertisers or media networks. And it's our role to simplify it. So for the advertisers here and the other folks referred to that earlier, work with your partners, with your MMPs. I can refer, at least on behalf of AppsFlyer, that we're doing everything to simplify things for the advertisers, so they will not need to know every bit and byte on the privacy budget and how the trusted executable environment is working, but we're doing all this nitty-gritty for them. And for the other side of the audience that are tech partners for these brands, do whatever you can from your side to simplify it for the brands and the advertisers, because that's the way that we can really leverage the technology and the framework together and push to adoption. So I want to continue on the timeline. So now we talked about how we will push for adoption. So assuming we have adoption, how do you see the day after looks like? How is these different players, how will their day-to-day be affected?
I mean, I'm going to come back a little bit to the kind of excited to see where this is going to go. I think the opportunities, kind of the transition to this more private world, and then the opportunities that get lit up really kind of bring about room for innovation, right? And I think I'm going to borrow the private framework. We oftentimes call them building blocks. The solutions and the APIs that we bring about within the Privacy Sandbox really are just the fundamental units, building blocks, framework by which innovation can happen. Where we can see this going is being able to light up more use cases around a variety of spaces, whether that's better understanding measurement, providing more insights, being able to extract more meaningful information to inform strategies, but as well, like thinking about audiences. We talk about protected audience from a remarketing perspective, but that's not its only intention. The ability to do other types of audience engagement, be able to reach your audiences beyond your app itself, really start to become areas where innovation can thrive. So as much as we see the AdTech ecosystem helping to simplify, as you're putting it, that transition period, so not having to have brands worry about bits and bytes of what to do with privacy budget, but having AdTech help translate that. We also see kind of the building blocks we have with the APIs, as well as with all of the other kind of privacy-preserving data that's available out there. The AdTech ecosystem will continue to thrive and work with brands and publishers to come up with new innovations over time. And from our side, we continue to invest in research efforts and invest in engineering efforts to bring about more privacy-preserving solutions to the ecosystem over time.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've seen from working with thousands of advertisers adopting to the former privacy changes. Roy showed some aggregative numbers about what happened in iOS ad spend-wise, but I want to go one step further and analyzing it not in a purely aggregated way. And I think that the ones that knew how to adapt to these major changes, not only that their day after didn't look worse, it actually looked much better for them, because it took time for their competitors to adjust, and during that period of time, they were alone there. They knew how to find the whales of their games, or the gamers inside their game, or any other qualitative users in lower CPIs with great LTV. So I'm very optimistic here that just like it's adopted there, and especially with the flexibility of these solutions, actually the day after is going to be very bright for the ones that will adopt and check it in parallel to GAID. And the key on top of that is two main things. First, looking holistically at the entire growth loop of the app. So it's the measurement, and we talked about it, and you've mentioned audiences and activation. And the thing that I'm mostly curious about, seeing how the entire ecosystem will adapt the day after, and again, relating to what was previously said, is how the ecosystem will create one reality, one single source of truth on top of that. Because eventually, Privacy Sandbox, with all of its advantages, it also has limitations. And that's relevant also for other solutions. So how you take the amazing things that you can do with that in parallel to other data points and create one single source of truth on top of it, I think it will be the key to how the day after will look like.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
You've mentioned Chrome before, and actually this is another thing interesting because Sandbox started in Chrome. We talked about Apple, so SK Ad Networks also as a solution in many aspects started on web. How do you see Sandbox in Chrome influencing Sandbox in mobile, or even asking one step further from Google point of view, are you seeing them closely tied together, aligned to one solution, or actually two separated solutions in the future?
Yeah. Let me take a stab at trying to answer that. But I think most people here, so you guys are here, probably are familiar. Privacy Sandbox initially started on the Chrome side several years ago. About 2 years ago is when we announced, or a year and a half ago is when we announced the Privacy Sandbox coming to Android. So we oftentimes kind of think through what are the right principles, what are the right frameworks, building blocks, areas we want to be going and investing in. That said, of course, apps and web are different, right? They have their nuances. There's obviously parts that are similar, but there's nuances to them. Android is different than Chrome. There's all these important distinctions here. So as we kind of then invest our times and spend time, we go out there to make sure we understand the needs of all of the different types of solutions, platforms, and strategies out there to help inform our design. So we use that really to kind of make sure we're building the best for the platforms that we work with, but also kind of making sure that overall we talk about Privacy Sandbox in a way that does make sense for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that because when we look from advertisers' point of view, eventually we in AppsFlyer are representing the advertisers. They want to look at the entire growth loop of their business in a holistic way and not per platform. So the more united the solutions are in web and in Android, and I completely agree that eventually there are nuances, but if we take the common parts and do it together, eventually we ease on advertisers to adopt because from their point of view, from many of the brands' point of view, the platform doesn't really depend. They want to look at the growth loop and maximizing growth and LTV. So I'm happy to hear that. And this
if you don't mind, I just want to add like one more piece on that one because I think that echoed a lot to me. That resonated a lot with me and echoed something in my head, which is, we talk about Android and Chrome as Google platforms. It's, I think for us, what we really kind of have our ambitions set towards is to think about this not just as Google platform solutions, but as industry platform solutions. We'd love to be able to kind of work with the industry overall to bring this to all the platforms. And that's kind of also how we think about this and the solutions that we're building for all types of browser platforms, for all types of mobile platforms, being able to bring that about.
Yeah. So what you've just said is a great segue to my next question, and maybe I want to challenge you a bit here.
Yeah.
Because we talked about mobile and web, but actually we live in a much broader cross-device world today, and CTV and consoles and PC for the gaming companies here. 50% of the revenue is maybe coming from mobile, but 50% is coming from other platforms. And we've touched it before that most of these solutions for Android are mostly on-device solutions. So how do you in Google see these frameworks of Privacy Sandbox working in a cross-device reality where it's a bit more challenging to deliver on-device solutions?
Yeah. Good question. We often hear about cross-device, right? And I think maybe the way I would start with kind of thinking through this is it's important for us to take this one step at a time. We've focused our efforts, same device. We have actually brought about advancements with same device with app to web by bringing that across platforms on the same device. And so that's already lit up use cases that the industry is starting to explore. And so I think for us, that's kind of like how we're trying to approach this. We want to be responsible not only with kind of the solutions that we're building, but how we're bringing them out to the ecosystem. In addition to that, what I would call out is as much as we spend our times talking about the efforts that are out there in public, the APIs that we talk about today, that we went through today, I think it's also important to remember that we continue to invest research and engineering efforts to advance these technologies, to advance our understanding of what's possible to do with privacy-preserving technologies. And so kind of as that continues to evolve, as that develops, we see and we're excited about kind of this opportunity ourselves to bring about more solutions, enabling more use cases, things like cross-device. We see that as kind of the path that we want to be able to go and continue to grow. So I think that's kind of how we tend to think about this internally, and kind of invest and think about what is the next frontier of what we can do with things. A good example of is trusted execution environments, right? Just bring that about, right? Was it that advent of, it doesn't have to just be on device for something to work and be private. We can move things to these environments while still preserving user privacy. And so we think this is really just kind of, again, we're at the cusp of exploring this space more and more. So I'm eager and excited about what's going to be coming from our side soon.
Yeah, so I'm happy that the challenge was accepted because in the last year, we from advertisers hear cross-device and cross-platform and about the needs more and more, and we see more and more brands in their strategy when they release a new app or a new game or a new functionality, they look at it on a cross-platform manner. Many advertisers leverage these new opportunities to engage with users. So excited to see how you guys on the tech side are going to solve it in a cross-platform manner. Maybe last couple of questions. I'm surprised because we're sitting in this room for 2 hours and I haven't heard one word that for the last year, I haven't been in any panel not mentioned. Who can guess what is that word? AI. AI, okay. So I won't get 5 stars review from the people if I won't have ask a question about AI. Generative AI becomes more and more embedded in the life of advertisers. You guys in Google recently introduced several AI tools to help marketeers. Curious to ask, what are the first feedback and reviews that you've heard from the ones implemented these tools?
I mean, I think AI is critical. I have to toe the line. AI is critical. No, I agree. Right?
You want 5 stars as well.
I know. I got to get the 5 stars. No, but AI, obviously, the advances that are happening in AI, are amazing. What I read about, what I see happening, and what I see what's possible these days with AI is just mind-blowing. And the idea behind this, though, right, is this ability. I think if you take a few steps back and you look at the Attech ecosystem, kind of been in the world of AI and automation for a long time, right? The ideas of kind of moving from this kind of simplistic, rule-based kind of world to advancing more and more with what you can do with automation, insights that you can gather, ways that you can activate, improvements in optimization. This type of advancements in automation have really kind of been helping the ecosystem for many, many years. AI is really kind of now this next advent across the technology space. So I think there's just going to be more and more advancements that are going to be coming, what you can do with AI. And the part that gets really interesting is this idea of, with AI, with automation, being able to deliver better performance with less data actually kind of, again, comes back to this area where in a world of privacy, looking at going back to Roy's slide here, part of privacy is about data minimization. It helps with a privacy narrative. And so being able to then layer automation and AI on top of that really will help everybody extract more insight, meaningful insights from their data. So I think in that aspect, I actually think, I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity as AI is being continued to invest in and grown. Like where we're at ChatGPT 4 or something. Who knows what 9 and 10 is going to look like for years from now. But I think, that's where I come back and I say, yes, I think this is going to be a space where that innovation, take the building blocks, build the right solutions, layer on the advancements in technology like automation and AI, really are then going to start to light up kind of that, what does the next day look like?
Yeah, I think AI is certainly a key to prove that privacy and experience and powerful insights can coexist. What I hear and see the most from marketeers these days around AI is that they understand that AI is not here to replace us, but actually a great tool to deal with the complexity of the ecosystem. I think that the only people that AI will replace are the ones that will not know to leverage AI, and they will be replaced with the people that will leverage AI on the marketing side. If there is one thing I'm mostly excited to see how AI solves in our ecosystem is if it can make marketing teams and product teams on the brand side closer together. So if marketing are optimizing ROAS and product are optimizing LTV, how AI becomes the upper layer that maximizes together, I would say, the growth or the profit of the brand. So this is what I'm personally mostly excited to see how our ecosystem will adopt AI, but Privacy Sandbox can certainly be a great framework for that. And maybe last question to make it really actionable to the audience. You know what, Amit, even not necessarily just about Privacy Sandbox, but the marketing and the ad tech in the privacy era, Privacy Sandbox and beyond it. What is your golden tip to the audience for adopting to the privacy era?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think there were some great suggestions here today for everyone. You know, I really resonated with the slide that kind of lays out this like ever-evolving landscape that's happening between user expectations or across user expectations, you know, regulatory requirements, and just the evolving landscape that is kind of happening, not just now, but for years. We can see where the hockey puck is going, right? We know where, we feel pretty good about where that is going. And so I think the part here, for the moment, like the fact that you're sitting here, I think Jolene was saying this as well, like the fact that you're sitting here indicates you're already leaning in. You know, I would say continue to ask questions, continue to kind of think about what is it that your business needs to be able to thrive and grow. As I think about a more private future for consumers and for user data, I don't think that necessarily has to come at a, what do you have to give up? I want to echo this idea of what we want to do is make sure we understand where are the opportunities to grow your business? Where are the challenges you guys see for running and growing your businesses? And so that then fuels the research and the engineering and investments that we're doing on our side, because we're really looking to make sure that we can light up the right use cases within the right privacy framework. And so that is kind of like where we continue to invest our time and effort. So, you know, keep the conversation going is probably the best piece of advice for now. Kind of look to see what is evolving, where the challenges are, but don't think of the challenges just as what do you have to give up. Think of them as where is the next opportunity for your guys' business.
Yeah, I can relate to that and say that I think my tip for brands and advertisers will be to think how you leverage all different frameworks and methodologies given to you, Privacy Sandbox, but how you embed it together with other solutions, Google Play Referrer, modeling where applicable, top-down solutions such as incrementality and media mix modeling. But when you try and leverage all these things together, there are two things to take into consideration. One is how this whole thing works together across your entire marketing machine, how optimization can be done based on this data, how targeting and retargeting. And the last thing, and I'm saying it, I think, for the third time, because this is really the most important thing, how you take all of these things and creating one reality out of it. Because probably many of you are familiar with the phrase that when there is one person in a room with a watch, everyone knows what's the time. But when there are two people with a watch, no one knows what's the real time. There are discrepancy. They don't know on which watch they want to look. So the real challenge here is taking all these things, but it's upon us as an ecosystem to create out of these great technological solutions one watch for your brand and for your rhythm of business, because that's the way to grow. And I think Privacy Sandbox gives all these options.
Awesome. Love it.
Thank you very much, everyone.